Okay, so welcome to the second episode of our discussion for the subject of marketing management. So before, on our first episode, we discussed the introduction to marketing management. Now, we will discuss the second part of the topic that we have, which is understanding marketing management within the global context. Because as we all know, right, we are already entering globalization. So because of the verge of internet and the boundaries that of the countries is actually fading because of globalization and international trade. So marketers must understand the context of global marketing or globalization. Okay? So let's discuss. So the objective of discussion would be first is the to understand the critical aspect of management. Then after that, we will discuss how marketing management is practiced. And next is how global market management is practiced. Next is the major methods of going global or entering a foreign market. Then lastly is the managing in developing a low income market. So those are the discussion that we will tackle today, right? So first, let's discuss management because we are talking about marketing management. And previously, as a marketing student, as we already discussed intensively what is marketing, right? But now we will discuss what is management and what is the concept of management and how does marketing management differ in other principle of marketing. So first, to understand management, management is the ability or the art of using organizational resources to achieve the organizational goal through a function of planning, organizing, leading, and control. Okay? So the simplest definition of management is the science and art of planning, organizing, leading, and controlling the business organization to achieve organizational goal. Okay? Managers are the people within the organization charged to run the organization on behalf of the owners. Most of the company, right? The owners are not the managers, right? The owners are not the managers, and they hire their own management team. But there are small businesses that the managers of the company are the owners itself. Okay, so now we will discuss the four basic pillars of management. And that is number one, as we mentioned earlier, planning. Right? Planning establishes the direction of the organization. Right? Next, we have organizing. Organizing divides the activity among work groups, allocated the people, technological, physical, financial, and informational services required to achieve a certain task. Third pillar would be leading, which is motivating employee to achieve organizational goals. And lastly, we will have control or control measures and evaluate organizational performance. Right? So later we will discuss that in details. So planning. Planning is the process of establishing goals and objective and selecting a future course of action to achieve them. In planning, a manager looks into the future, pointing out what management wants to achieve and how they are going to achieve it. Decision making is central component of planning because choices needs to be made over what activity and goals are part of the planning. Okay. So in planning, first is you need to identify what are the goals of the company. What are the future goals, okay, of the company, where the company wants to be. Okay? The mission and the vision of the company, you have to identify that. Then after you identify that, you then plan for a long-term goal. Then after planning a long-term goal, your short-term goal. Right? Then after that, you formulate the strategies to achieve those goals. So that is basically planning. And planning is decision making. That is the central component of this function of being a manager. Okay? The next pillar is organizing. It is the process of making sure the necessary human, physical, technological, financial, and informational resources are available to carry out the plans to achieve the organizational goals. Operational design is the process by which managers selects and manage aspect of an organization's structure and culture to coordinate with the activity necessary to achieve the organizational goal. Right? Organizations are normally divided into function, department, and multifunctional activities. Okay? So, in organizing, you already have the plan. Now, in organizing, you want to ensure or to compartmentalize what are or who are responsible for each function, or you want to distribute or to allocate, right, the resources of the company or of the organization to certain functions to ensure that you will achieve the organizational goal. And as we mentioned earlier, it is normally divided into functions, departments, and multifunctional activities, which we will discuss right now. So functions are distinct group of uh, staff serving a specialist, okay, in achieving and setting a given objectives and carry out corresponding activities, and they are usually permanent within the organization. So a certain function is, let's say, a payroll or a payroll specialist or a labor relations specialist. Okay, these are functions of the organization. Right? There is specific tasks or they are specialized in certain tasks. Another example is a marketing specialist, or let's say a public relations specialist. Right? So it is a task of with specialized person who actually conducts the said activity, right? Then a higher level of that function is what we call a department, and it comprises of many functions. The marketing department, for example, can contain marketing research function and sales function. So an example is an HR department comprises of many functions such as working environment, compensation and benefit, efficiency and effectiveness, right? Talent development, compensation benefit, what else? Recruitment, right? Labor relations. So those are the functions within the human resource department. Next, we have the multifunctional or cross-functional activity. Occurs when work is carried out by employees from different function or department with the pre-selected team leader. Okay, they are now a team comprising of a group of people linked through a common purpose. An example of that is if a company decides to create a certain system. Let's say they want to purchase a HRIS or a HR information system. The primary team leader of that multifunction or of that project is definitely the HR, because the HR is the one who needs that system. Members of that project is probably one, finance, because finance knows the budget of the company, how much budget can be allocated in that system that they will purchase. Next is the procurement. The procurement is the one who looks for the supplier, who looks for the vendor, right? Next is operations. Operations probably it look into the how does that HRIS benefit the operation, because the operation is the one who provides the income or revenue for the company. Then it was budgeted by the finance, right? So those are the things that it is being discussed in a multifunctional or cross-functional activity. Right? An example, this is an example of a department, right? Next is leading. Leading means influencing other people to achieve organizational objectives. Okay? It involves energizing, directing, and persuading others and creating a vision. So, as a good manager, okay, as a good manager, that manager must have a people skill, right? It is a good leader, okay, because you are not a good manager if you don't have the leadership skills, right? You have to influence your people, or you have to influence your subordinate, convince them to help the company achieve its common goal or its objective. Whatever is the objective, a leader must pursue or must convince its subordinate to follow or to achieve the organizational goal, right? Leadership is a process of influencing others to understand and agree about what needs to be done and how to do it, right? It is the process of facilitating individual and collective effort to accomplish a shared objective. So it is a function of a leader or of the leadership to let the subordinates realize, certain individuals, to realize the purpose why a certain process is being given to them. And what is the goal? Why they need to follow or why they need to accomplish a certain objective. It should be a shared effort by everybody, by all the members of the organization. A part of being a leader is the leader must have a people management skill. It is an art of giving direction to people. Managing people or employee introduced a major challenge or major challenges. Goals are achieved through people, and more fundamentally, without people, there would be no organization. As we all know, organization is a group of people, right? There is no organization without people. And managers, most importantly, and oftenly most difficult, the role can be can be to manage people, right? Managers must lead, motivate, inspire, and encourage people, right? So you are not a good manager if you cannot lead, if you demotivate, if you do not inspire, and you discourage people. You are not a good manager, because as a manager, you must have the leadership skill. You can motivate the employees, you can inspire them to do good, and you can encourage them to do good and achieve the company's or the organizational goal. But sometimes, however, no matter how good the manager is, sometimes you must also handle the dirty stuff, okay, which is to hire, fire, discipline, and evaluate employee. Sometimes you already did your best, but the problem is not just the management, or not only the management, but the employee itself. So therefore, you have no choice but sometimes to discipline or fire an employee. That is also being handled by the management or the managers. Next is the organizational context. It includes the way the organization is structured and how it operates, focusing on the structure, resources, and departments, as well as the behavior and culture within the organization. The organizational context is different for different companies. There is, it is not possible that there are companies which has the same organizational context. It depends because the organizational context depends on the length or the life of the organization, the experience of the organization, the challenges that the organization experience, right, and the management. So it really varies and it really depends, right? The organizational context, the people in the organizational context, as well as the external context, inevitably introduce additional challenges because of their complexity, uncertainty, and variety. So complexity, uncertainty, and variety uh, adds to the difficulty or challenge in managing our subordinates or in managing our employees, right? Complexity, okay, a large number of potential relevant factor may have a bearing on the intended outcome. Business and markets are complex entities. So complexity is the factors. So for example, is the different culture of each person, right? The different beliefs of our employees, their religion, their political aspiration, their political leaning. So these are the different factors that we have. Not only that, the volatility of our product, right? Our business economy, right? Our political condition and environment. So these are the complexity that adds to the challenges of management. Next is uncertainty. There may be insufficient information about the nature and likelihood of a certain event that may have a bearing on our intended outcome. Okay? It is hard to predict the future and how companies in marketing will react. Uh, an example of this is when COVID hits the Philippines. COVID was declared, or there was an enhanced community quarantine was declared in the Philippines, I think in March of March 17, okay, of 2020. And with that uncertainty, businesses is not sure if they will still proceed. Managers wants to proceed their business. Management wants to make their operation business as usual. But the problem is because of the enhanced community quarantine, right? The operation is really affected, right? Changing in protocols, changing in the health and safety, the number of infected cases, right? This adds uncertainty. With the new variant that we have right now, which is the Delta variant, now there is another variant that we have, the Lambda, right? So with this, it gives uncertainty to the managers. Do they pursue, or do they want to fight it out, right? Or they stop operation, right? So these are the factors of the uncertainty. And not only that, this uncertainty affects the morale of your employees, right? Affects the security of the employees. That's the reason why it really adds up to the challenges of management to ensure that the outcome that they planned will be the same. Right? Next is variety. The different and potentially expected and unexpected events may be encountered as part of the process. Right? So an example of variety are the actual people or the actual employees that you have. Okay? Our employees do have different principles, different culture, different provinces, political lineage, okay, principles, religion. So with this complexity or with this variety that we have, we must ensure that we can harmonize this difference and use that that harmony that we have developed and convince them to work together to achieve the common goal of the organization. Right? Okay. There is a reciprocal relationship between management, people, and the organization. So we will discuss it further, such as individuals or individual members of the organization have different personality, different in style of thinking, and different levels of physical and cognitive ability. Thus, will perform at a different level. This also relates to how individuals select and use information and what motivates them to achieve their own organizational goals. As I mentioned earlier, individual or the people have differences, right? So it is the role of the management to ensure to harmonize those differences and remove something that is not, or suppress something that is not in accordance to the organizational goal, right? And convince everyone to work in unison, to work in unity, to achieve the common organizational goal. Interaction, well, it refers to the interaction among the people, right? Whether as an individual, function, or a group. Okay? They include leadership and management style, group and team dynamics, communication among people, and the use of information for decision making. The elements of conflict and negotiation are also relevant, particularly due to the need to collaborate to achieve the result. Okay. So interaction is basically the unwritten language in the organization, right? It is how people interacts with the management, people interacts with the individual, the function, the group, and the management, vice versa, right? So that's basically what interaction is, and managers must manage this, must identify, okay, the ideal interaction within the organization, right? Next, formal system. This includes the formal system of control, evaluation, or reward. Okay? In business, it often felt that what gets measured gets managed. So this formal system can have a large impact on what occurs while within the organization. Many are now automated formal controls, tracking and tracing, work practice, and processes. So basically, formal system are the usual processes that we have, which is already documented, and there is already a process flow, which everybody follows, right? For example, if you need a budget, so there you need to lodge a request, then that request will fall into the hands of the finance, and if there is a finance, if there is a budget, you go to the executive committee to approve it. Then if the executive committee approves it, they give it to the treasury, so the treasury will give you the project. So that's basically how it works, right? There is a flow, okay, a process flow in the system, right? And next is the social system. So this relates to the culture and the shared norms and expectation within an organization, and the use of power and influence. So basically, this is the society or the organization as a an active organization, right? So it has a life of its own, right? So this is the life of the organization, how they communicate with their managers, how they communicate with the management, how each individual communicate with another, or the faction of group, right? So basically, this is the social system that is being discussed in this topic, right? So basically, these are the factors that the management must consider, or the managers must consider, right? Okay. So after discussing what is the concept of management, now we dive into what is marketing management. So what is marketing management? We already discussed what is the management part. Now let's discuss what is the concept of marketing management. So marketing management is a business discipline that achieves goals through the practice of practical application of marketing techniques and the management of the total firm's marketing resources and activity. Okay? It is the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling of the analysis of the market and choice of a target market and branding position and the use of marketing mix activity required to manage products and services, pricing, distribution, promotion, processes, people, and all physical evidence to keep the customer satisfied. Okay? So in Marketing 101, we define marketing as the art and science, okay, of providing the customer needs at a profit. Right? The art and science of providing and identifying and providing the customer's needs at a profit. Okay? Then if we introduce management of that, it is the art and science of identifying, okay, the customer needs at a profit, which we plan, organize, lead, and control all of these aspects. Okay, that is basically marketing management. And what is the value of marketing management within the organization? Marketing management in the organization can be at a disadvantage because organizational and environmental pressure do not understand the importance of marketing management. Right? This includes the following: uncertain definition of marketing and the lack of understanding of marketing by some people. Right? The reason why we are studying marketing and the reason why we are discussing marketing is for you to understand what marketing is and what is the value of marketing in a business. Then after that, if you became part of the top management, you will share this ideology, you will share this theoretical idea of marketing to them so that they will understand. Right? Because it is really hard to create a marketing strategy if you really do not have the basic working idea of what marketing is and of what's the purpose of marketing. Right? Next is the tyranny of profit and loss or financial focus of the company. Often the myopic view focusing on the short-term gain to the detrimental of a long-term sustainable growth. Okay? So, because the majority of the management focusing on the profit or loss that the company is having, right? They think that a marketing strategy that costs a lot is a waste of money. They thought that investing in marketing is a waste of money, right? And just focusing on the short-term goal. Will that yield enough revenue for us? If it will not yield revenue in the shortest time period, it is a waste of investment, according to them. But not necessarily understanding that if you invest in a good marketing strategy, it probably yield you a small effect or a small income or revenue, or even not give you a revenue right away, but on a longer period of time, if you sustain that kind of marketing strategy, it will give you a growth or sustainable growth, right? Which sometimes the management cannot realize that immediately. Another factor is the difficulty in indirectly measuring marketing returns. Because as we all know, the top management will think that, oh, if we provide you a budget for your marketing strategy, make sure that within this time period, it will yield us revenue, additional revenue to compensate with the budget that we allocated for you. But sometimes that's not the case. sometimes it will really take time before the effect of the marketing strategy will give great results, right? So that's the usual problem, especially lack of appreciation of the top management in the marketing strategy. Next is the shift in channel power and the loss of manufacturing control. So the problem here is because the marketing management do not have any direct control with the manufacturing department. Sometimes even the marketing department can say that, okay, we assure our customer to provide a good quality products, but because of cost control of the manufacturing department, they tend to provide uh, a lower quality product. And because of that, if customer feels that the product that they receive is below par, or if the products that they receive is below quality or has a low quality, it will dissatisfy the customer. So therefore, okay, even though that you have a good marketing strategy, but the manufacturing department does not provide you the strategy that you gave, or does not commit to the strategy that you created, it will definitely not work, or it will definitely dissatisfy customers. Right? In addition to that is the increasing demands of the customer. Right? So if you increase the demand of the customer, sometimes the manufacturing department to provide the demand will provide a low quality product, right? That will really affect the marketing strategy. Another is the limiting the marketing role in top management. So some top management thinks that marketing is not important, right? They do not give a fair share. The marketing managers is not given a fair share, or is not being taken seriously by the top management. They think that marketing is just a waste of resources, right? Marketing managers not having the same statute as a manager in other areas such as finance, engineering, and sales, right? So they think that marketing managers are just a nominal role in the business organization. They are not being taken seriously, right? Other challenges are moving staff from other areas into marketing without formal marketing training, and expecting them to learn while they're there, right? They thought that you can just teach marketing to anyone and they can understand the concept of marketing. But that's not how it works. The reason why in business administration, marketing management is a separate course compared to financial management, human resource development management, economics, entrepreneurship. The reason why we have a different course in business administration is because marketing is a different animal, right? It has a different theoretical structure. That's the reason why we study for it, right? You have to have a formal understanding of marketing for you to understand the concept. It is not just you will learn it along the way, right? Next is not providing ample resources. They thought that marketing is just an expense and it will not provide yield compared to providing resources to the operation. Lastly, the lack of alignment between marketing strategy and business strategy. The basic concept of marketing strategy is to provide what the customer demanded, satisfy them at a profit. But the problem in some business strategy is they focus directly on the profit only, regardless if their customer is satisfied or not. And that is the problem in marketing management. Right? That is what we need to address in marketing management. Right? Okay. Managing across the entire organization. Okay. So, marketing is a boundary spanning operation because marketing must affect every aspect of the customer experience. Right? Marketing must affect every aspect of the customer experience. Marketing must include all possible touch points such as store layout, the packaging design of the product, product function, customer service, and many more roles that are not obvious dominion of the marketing department, such as product schedule, supply and demand, right? Network, and so forth. Marketing must also be influenced in the key general management activity, such as manufacturing, production, and service innovation, service provision, and new business development. To create a strong marketing organization, marketers must think like executive of other departments. And okay, executives in other departments must also think like a marketer, right? So marketing is broad. An example is even that you have a good marketing strategy, you have a good commercial, you can state that your product is high quality, international quality standard, but the manufacturing department produces a faulty product. Just one faulty product will destroy the credibility of your marketing strategy, right? Just one faulty product can destroy the credibility of your marketing strategy. Right? So that's the reason why, okay, it is a broad and expanding operation. Right? Okay. In marketing management, managing outsourced activity is also part of your function, right? An example of that is most of the function of marketing right now is being outsourced to a different company, right? The creative branch of marketing is usually outsourced to a different company or a advertising company or a marketing company. While the other concept of marketing, such as the web management, customer database, or data analysis, is also outsourced. Part of it, or most of it, most of the outsourced activity should be managed by the marketing management, right? Next is another part of the marketing management is managing the networks and relationship. Okay, much of the marketing management operates with the network world. So a relational and network approach is needed, demanding the coordination of networks of suppliers, customers, and service providers at the range level never witnessed in any business. So it means that all stakeholders, okay, the management must have good relationship with all the stakeholders, such as who are the stakeholders? The management itself, the owners of the company, the employees of the company, right? Or the employees of the organization, the suppliers of the organization, and the customers of the organization. Even the government are stakeholders. Right? The company must, or the organization must have a good relationship with each and every one of these stakeholders. Because if not, if one fails, okay, if one fails, definitely it will hit the operation of the company. Example, if the company do not have a good relationship with the government, let's say the company is not paying in the right taxes to the government, what will happen? The government may shut down, may require the company to shut down or to lock out the company. until they pay the right taxes. Right? Another example is if the company or the organization do not have a good relationship with the employee may declare strike and may refuse to go to work. Or the employees may sue the company itself, which will affect the proper operation of the business over the organization. Suppliers, for example, if the management do not have a good relationship with the supplier may not care about the organization. The supplier may not care if they do not provide the raw materials on time. And not having the raw materials on time may affect the operation and the production of the company. Right? Okay, so that's the reason why we have to manage networks in good relationship with the stakeholders. Right? So once that we have that, or once that, when we already understand what marketing management is, next we need to understand the global marketing management. Okay? And marketing management focuses on how, okay, on focuses on the intention of organization to go globalization, or to go globalize, right? To do business internationally. Okay? The principal impact of increasingly complex and globalized world on marketing principle is that all managers, whether operate nationally, internationally, or globally, are impacted by the globalization of the business world. Right? Globalization is a business orientation based on the belief that the world is becoming homogeneous and the distinction between national markets are fading. But for some offering will eventually disappear. Okay? Deciding whether to go abroad or not. So when we discuss globalization, it's basically it is basically the boundaries, the territorial boundaries of marketing of each country is already fading, because you can already purchase anything, everything at your smartphone, right? And because of that, okay, you are trying to infiltrate, or not infiltrate, but you're trying to ensure that you can do business in another country. And that's the reason why we are discussing globalization. And if in deciding to go abroad, we have to discuss the concept of globalized marketing management. Right? Okay. So, in a global industry, competitors' strategic position in major geographic or national market are affected by their overall global position. Right? So, global firm operates in more than one country and captures the research and development, production, logistical, marketing, and financial advantage not available to purely domestic competitors. Right? So an example of a global firm are Nestle, Rolex, Unilever, Uniqlo, Coca-Cola, Citibank, Jollibee. Jollibee is a globalized company or a global firm. Okay? Next is internationalization. So it is the process through which a firm moves from operating solely in a domestic or home marketplace to operate in the international market. Okay, many companies now looking to a global market rather than simply remaining in their domestic market. Right? Outside the domestic market, marketing managers need to understand the different language, different laws, dealings with volatile currency, face politics and legal uncertainties, protective legislation, or the need to redesign or modify their products or services to suit the different customer needs and expectation. So that is the requirement if a firm decides to go international. Okay? So several factors draw companies into international arena. And those factors are some international market presents higher profit opportunity than the domestic market. For example, if you want to go to the Philippines and you have a market or you have a product which is low cost, right? You can enter the Philippine market, right? Which is we have 200 million population, and probably half of it would be your customer, right? Increasing profit. Not only that, if you, let's say, you can go to a first world country, right? And you know that the first world country can purchase your product because they have the buying power, right? So you can sell your products on that market at a higher margin, right? So those are the advantages. Next is the company needs a larger customer base to achieve an economies of scale. So as I mentioned, if you have a larger population, right, larger customer base. Sometimes if you're not focusing on the larger population, but you're also looking into the buying power of that country. Okay. Next is it want to reduce its dependency in one market, right? So if you're just dependent in the Philippines, you're tied in the Philippine market. But if you go abroad, even though what happened to the Philippine economy, and you have branches outside the Philippines, that might not be affected by the economical problem of the Philippines. The company decided to counterattack global competitors in their home market. An example is Jollibee and McDonald's. Okay, Jollibee is a brand here in the Philippines, created here in the Philippines. Then when McDonald's entered the Philippine market, Jollibee have a direct competitor. Now with that, instead of Jollibee fighting it out with McDonald's in the Philippines, now Jollibee brings the fight outside the Philippines. Jollibee tries to infiltrate other market with McDonald's, such as the United States, you have Germany, you have Italy, Japan, and other companies, right? Customers are going abroad and requires international service. Example, Filipinos. As we all know, we have immigrants, we have OFWs in other countries, right? And the strategy of Jollibee is still to provide Jollibee, the products of Jollibee to all Filipinos abroad. That is the strategy, right? Now, before deciding to go abroad, the company must be aware and weigh up all the risk possible, or several risks possible. And what are these risks? The company must not the risk is the company might not understand the foreign preferences and could fail to offer a competitively attractive products and services, right? So, for example, if you go to a country which you are not familiar or you're not aware, you might not provide a competitive advantage, right? It depends on the behavior, it depends on the principle of the customer in the target market. If, for example, the target market is loyal to their local brand, if you enter it and try to compete with the local brand, there's a huge possibility that you will lose because your target market is loyal to their local brand, right? Next is the company might not understand the foreign country's business culture, even if they are geographically close, right? So, for example, the Philippine business is very different in Singapore, although we are in the same timeline, right? The time in the Philippines is the same in the time in Singapore, but the business culture is different. And if you do not understand that, you might fail. Okay. Next is the business might underestimate the foreign regulation and incurred unexpected expenses. For example, the sanitary law in the Philippines is very much different from the sanitary law in the United States or in Australia. So if you try to enter those market, if you're a restaurant, right, or a food industry law in the Philippines is different from the food industry law in other countries. Now, if you're not familiar with that and you try to enter that market, and you do have there is a really big difference, you might incur unexpected penalties or fees, or if you do not comply with that law, your business might shut down by the government of that country, right? The company might lack managers with international experience, right? So managing people in the Philippines is different from managing people in another country, right? The employees in China is different from the employees in the Philippines. It is different in the employees in India. So the culture is different. The working ethics is different, right? Next is the foreign country might change its commercial laws and trading rules, or start a trade war, devalue its currency, or undergo a political revolution and expropriate foreign properties. An example of this incident is what happened to the administration of Donald Trump and Huawei, which Huawei is a Chinese company. Now, Donald Trump issued a numerous statement against Huawei, which affects Huawei's market in the United States, right? So those are the political unrest, right? That might affect a business. Okay. So those are the risks that a business might encounter if they decide to go abroad or go international. And after understanding the risk, we need to understand also how to enter those market or how to enter the international market. And one of the strategy to enter an international market is, first you must find a you have to identify what mode of entry will you uh, will you use. You can go it alone. You can find a partner or acquire a company. Find a partner often have a few choices, such as the indirect exporting, direct exporting, licensing, or joint venture. While go it alone means that the company will enter into the market themselves or a direct investment. Okay, so we will discuss that later. So in direct exporting, companies typically start with exporting. Exporting means you are sending your product from your original country to the target market or to the target country, right? So we do have two kinds of exporting. So one is the indirect exporting, right? So indirect exporting is they work through an independent intermediaries. Domestic-based exporting merchants buy the manufactured products and then sell them abroad. So domestic-based exporting agents include trading companies seeking and negotiating foreign purchase for a commission. Cooperative organization conduct exporting activities for several products, often of primary products such as fruits and nuts. So export management companies agreed to manage a company's export activities for a fee. So indirect exporting is basically getting an agent, okay, in the target market and ask them to sell your products at a commission. So that is indirect exporting. So indirect exporting has two advantages. First is it has a less investment because you are just sending the products to a intermediary and with less investment. And once that the product was sold in that market, okay, you will receive your payment, and you will just pay the intermediary commission. Okay, less investment without export department. Okay, no need for an overseas sales force, or no need to set up an international contacts. Right. Second advantage is it has a less risk because international market intermediaries brings know-how and services to the relationship and should make fewer mistakes because their knowledge of the market. Because these intermediaries is familiar with their marketing environment. Therefore, it is less risk. They understand their market. Next is we have the direct exporting. Okay, it is when companies decided to handle their exports, whether or where their investment and risk is somewhat greater, but with so much potential. So this is the type that the company uh, establish their exporting department because they are exporting their product in the target market, right? So exporting happens in several ways. So one is domestic-based exporting department or division. A purely service function may evolve into a self-contained exporting department operating as its own profit center. So it is a different part of the organization. Tatayo sila ng division for that. Then you have the overseas sales branch or subsidiary. The sales branch handling sales and distribution and perhaps warehousing and promotion as well. Okay? It often serves as a display for a customer service center. Exporting sales representative is also one of the strategy in the direct exporting. Okay? They find someone abroad and do the exporting for them. And next is the foreign-based distribution or agent-based. Okay, this third party can hold limited and exclusive rights to represent the company in that country. Right? So they can get a company abroad, then they task that company to sell their products, an exclusive rights to sell the products. It's example here in the Philippines is I think I don't know if they already changed their strategy, but before the apparels of Lee, you have the Lee pipes, you also have the Tribal, and other companies, right? They they assigned an agent here in the Philippines to distribute their products here in the Philippines. I don't know if that is still their marketing strategy, but as far as I know, that's how they started. Right? Next strategy is licensing and franchising. So licensing can be simple way to engage in international marketing. Okay, whether the licensor issued a license to the foreign company to use a manufacturing process, trademark, patent, trade secret, and other items of value for a fee or royalty. The licensor gain entry at little risk, and licensing gains products expertise or a well-known product or brand name. An example of this is um, Ramcar. The company name is Ramcar. Okay, Ramcar is actually licensed to operate KFC. KFC, as we all know, is Kentucky Fried Chicken. It is a U.S. brand. Now, the one who's licensed to have or to have these products here in the Philippines is Ramcar. right? They're licensed and franchised to operate here in the Philippines. They are the one who manages the branches here in the Philippines. Okay? A company can enter a foreign market through franchising. Okay? A more complete or form of licensing, whether the franchisor offer a complete brand concept and operating system, and in return the franchisee invest in paying certain fees to the franchisor. Then the typical type of it is the KFC, which is the franchisee of Ramcar, right? Or the franchising is Ramcar, and the franchisor is KFC. Next is a joint venture. Foreign investor, joint local investor in a joint venture company in which they shared ownership and control to reach more geographical market, right? And to diversify investment and risk. A joint venture may be necessary or desirable for economic and political reason. For foreign firms might lack financial, physical, and managerial resources to undertake the venture alone, or the foreign government might require joint ownership of as a condition of entry. An example of that is Dito, right? The Dito Telecom, the third telecom. The Dito Telecom is not really 100% Filipino owned. Part of it is owned by Chinese Communication Services, right? CCS. Part of it is owned by the Mislacom, right? So basically, it is a joint venture. But probably some of them has financial capacity, some of them have the management capacity. Next type of entry is what you call the direct investment or acquisition. Okay, direct investment could be considered as the ultimate form of foreign investment, sometimes called the direct ownership or foreign direct investment. The foreign company builds its own manufacturing or services facility that is often called the full greenfield operation. An example of that is Unilever. Unilever has its own manufacturing company in the Philippines, right? Nestle has its own manufacturing company in the Philippines. Coca-Cola also has a direct investment in the Philippines, right? Next is deciding which market to enter. Okay, one of the factors that you need to consider is not only how, but what company to enter, or what market to enter, right? In deciding which market to enter, okay, or in deciding to internationalize, the company's market's objectives and policy needs to be defined first. Define what is your objective, what is your policy, right? Are you looking into targeting profit right away, or are you just looking into more production, right? So it depends on what is your policy, right? So first is you have to evaluate your potential risk. Okay, evaluate your potential market. Companies should be careful, however, in choosing market according to cultural similarities. Besides overlooking potential better market, firms may perform a superficial analysis of some very real differences among countries and adopt predictable marketing action that puts them to a disadvantage. An example of that is if you are selling, let's say, if your restaurant sells beef, right? You cannot go to India because in India, culturally, they're forbidden to eat beef, right? Because of their religious belief. Or if you're selling meat, or if you're selling pork, okay, you cannot go to an Islamic country because religiously they're not allowed to eat pork, right? So that's how you need to evaluate your market. Next is deciding on standardizing or adapting market. So standardizing all marketing mix activity includes the product, services design, communication, distribution channel, and promise of low cost, while adapting or localizing market mix where consumer needs are different and therefore the marketing mix activity are tailored to each target group. An example of that is if you look into the strategy of Jollibee, because the target market of Jollibee is Filipinos, mainly Filipinos, Jollibee wants to introduce that whatever is being sold in Jollibee Philippines is the same product that is being sold in the US, because Jollibee wants to let Filipino migrants feel that they're still in the Philippines because of the same products that is being offered. Right? That is the intention of Jollibee. Probably there's a few difference in the size or the flavor or whatnot, but basically that's the plan, or that's the strategy of Jollibee, to provide the standardized marketing mix. While McDonald's has a different strategy. McDonald's has a strategy of adapt or localize marketing mix. An example is in the States, or in the United States of America, they do not offer rice as a meal, or they do not offer chicken as a meal in McDonald's. But here in the Philippines, McDonald's offers chicken and rice. Right? In India, because India is or I think it's forbidden to eat beef in India. So therefore, if they're forbidden to eat beef, McDonald's cannot sell Big Mac. So what McDonald's did is, instead of selling Big Mac, they sell Maharaja Mac. A Maharaja Mac is a chicken meat, right? Just like Big Mac, but a different meat, right? In Germany, they sell beer as their beverage, right? So those are the different market. Those are adapting to the marketing mix. Okay. Next is managing in developing and low cost market. So one of the sharpest distinction in global marketing is between what has been called the developing world and the less or developing world, right? Also called as a low and middle income countries. Others, it is called the less developing countries, less economical developing countries, less matured market, or even lean, low, or high income replacement, high low income countries. It is basically used to replace the first, second, third world third world. There is a third world countries basically. So those terms are used to politically correct, according to them, the first, second, and third world country definition. Right? It is actually raise confusion and array in terms and debate on who qualifies for a low middle class. But basically, based on this definition or based on this management, you identify if the market that you plan to enter has the capacity to buy your products. Right? Example, in the Philippines, let's say the Philippines is a third world country, but because of the differences of income between the rich and the poor, based on the analysis of Rolex, based on the analysis of Lamborghini, of Porsche, right? They can, Hermes, they identified that even though that we are a third world country, there are people who will buy their products. That's the reason why they're here, right? So those are what they manage on this context. Okay, and so that ends our discussion in the understanding marketing management in a globalized context. Okay, with that, so that ends our discussion for today. Watch out for the third discussion that we will that I will upload in the future. Okay, with that, Goodbye, and please like and subscribe. Goodbye.